One. 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 One fine morning, a man, one fine morning, I ascend into wakefulness and sleep. I am weighted down, barely alive, buried underneath, almost being beneath an eiderdown of heavy, black, thick heaviness. Or is it just absence of light? I heave this body out of bed. I find and part the curtains. Sunlight dances across the skin on my face. Light has conquered dark, I feel.
One fine morning, this man opens his eyes, gets up and looks out of his window, stretching and grunting and scratching. The sun shines. It shines brightly on the ice-cold ice that lies dull and surly on the branches of the tree, whose twigs drummed on his window pane last night, rattling the glass, beating erratic time. From the other side of sleep, the memory rises up, returns to him. He remembers everything, how hard and strong the wind blew, playing its requiem in his chimney, and how, when he looked out, the big butter yellow, ageless, he remembers, thinking how odd that seems this morning. How the big butter yellow moon raced in silence across the sky. How it played, was it newt, hide and seek, behind the scurrying, racing occasional cloud.
Wakening. I open my eyelids. I reach out. I finger the curtains apart. I squint into the abrupt, stark light. Last night, the moon was big and yellow. It travelled across the sky at some speed, an impatient traveller. Now, it is its own pale, stillborn self, an etched thing lying on the sky. This morning, clouds half hide its shrunken face. The clock strikes, and between each strike, 7 silences continue their blossoming. I look and I think, if I had a dog that could bark, it would have a grand time lifting its head and howling at the moon, at this moon's ghost.
This awakening man ablutes his body in a stimulating storm of needle-sharp, cold and hot water. This is thrown upon his head by his power shower. He looks into the mirror. The face is familiar, but increasingly he finds he fails to achieve true recognition. Rather, he experiences faint surprise. Indeed, it could be described as shock. For a moment, he thought he believed he had seen his father's face, cold, staring back at him. But no. So now he dresses in clothes taken from his weekday wardrobe in preparation for his descent. Once, these clothes would have been flash. Now, they are so sober. We change, he thinks. How we change. A memory stirs, then is gone before he can catch it. He glides on the thick piled carpet that adorns the step of his stairway. Down, down he goes, through the empty house, step following step, footfall silently, ponderously following silent footfall, down into the wide, tiled hall where he switches off the burglary alarm system before going into the kitchen, where he negotiates his way between gas hob and electric oven, squeezing between the fridge freezer, the chest freezer. His presence is felt. The radio begins to play automatically. He is startled momentarily, then opens the great American freezer and considers what he might eat.
Souls of the dead. It was another world then, ageless. Then there were just the 3 of us, Benji and Midge and me, patrolling the sea, we was, as we had done many a time before. Hand over hand, heels over heads, dancing to upside-down music, when a great big wave comes, crafty, silent as the old reaper were, like being bathed in milk it were, only it were black, and then it were gone, without a sound, and gone with it were another, and it weren't Midge, and it weren't me.
From the hallway becomes the lecherous tick, 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 tick of the clock. The house is devoid of her being, yet he senses her presence everywhere. Or perhaps it is this. Perhaps it is that he finds her absence everywhere. He stands at the table. He butters toast. The tick, tick of the clock fills the kitchen. He considers this conundrum. He chews. He considers. She is to be found in the spaces between the ticks of the clock. Then he reconsiders. Perhaps she manifests her absence in the concreteness of the tick. Is this how loss becomes manifest?
Essentials 1. Beneath the clothes is the skins. Beneath the skin is the stuff that man is made of. The bone, the marrow bone, the thigh bone, like a hanged S, the backbone.
He fidgets. He is unsettled. He is fearful, though nothing has happened to make him feel such feelings. He forgets to finish his toast. He looks about. There, the flat-screen television set sits, mute and dull now, but pregnant with impending image and noise. He moves about. He feels a kind of dynamic power rising from the soles of his feet, but believes it to be illusionary. Still in all, he makes things happen. He can feel it. In the wake of his passage, the tap gushes, the electric kettle boils, the pot overspills, the telephone rings, then ceases. The microwave oven gleams and shines, its gunmetal body pristine under the spotlights, his body a shadow moving across its surface. On the computer, the email light flashes, the fax machine whirls, the washing machine and the tumble dryer compete with the electric kettle and the electric can opener, and the ice maker and the electric knife, and the garbage disposal unit, and the fly-killing machine, whose blue light gently illuminates the wall just there in the corner. Thus the morning commences. Thus the day proceeds. Thus the man steps into stuff, swims in plastic, leaps into murky metallic waters. Noises and sounds and things oscillate, setting the latest word to their music. Commingling, they fondle the man's central nervous system. They flirt with his eyes and with his ears. They smother him in kisses and cuddles and bury him in embraces. They canoodle and nuzzle his lips and bill and coo until his heart pumps red blood. High and mighty its roar rolls raucously inside his head.
Essentials 2. Inside the bone of the skull sits a pound of grey, damp stuff, impervious to pain, normally. The brain waits, eternally awake, always ready. Inside the brain, the mind, and inside the mind lie regions of fire and ice. And there, between the fire and the ice, meaning may be discovered if you know where to search.
The man opens his front door, prepared to go forth. He neither stumbles nor strides. Rather, he proceeds on tiptoes, the toes of his shoes brushing one against the other, thus pigeon-toed. He treads gingerly into the doorstep. His bones talk to his brain. He listens and believes. Also, he hears the wind playing across the wires overhead. Abruptly, the wind strikes his face. The wind strikes again. The wind assaults his skin. It slaps the skin of his face, again and again, and then once more. Yes, the touches are slaps. They are sandpaper slaps. Assaulted, thus, nevertheless, he shuts the door and turns the key in the lock. He casts the fake brass key carelessly aside, up high, pitching it through the air, and half attending, half ignoring, half following, watchfully from the corner of one eye, its flight path. As it spins, oscillating hurriedly through the sunlight, causing spikes of brassy brightness, once or twice abruptly to hurt his eyes, before suddenly falling down into tall plastic glass that occupies the floor of his hardboard, cardboard, and plywood garden.
The search. Around me, the air moves. As I release my breath, the day's air moves. I feel her breath on the skin of my face. It is a loving thing, this caress. In this knowledge, I release my life's breath in sympathy with the wind as it rises among the thorns, as the two breaths marry in sympathy, as they jig and reel in response to the call my empty lungs fill in accompaniment. My hollow chest cavity, my hollow body grows strong. I sense her breath on my cheek, my depleted being, the only unmoving things in my universe. The stone that was my heart, the anchors that are my heels, these all fade like morning mist.
Straight on through the narrow streets he strides, past the lying-in hospital, the brand-new super-hypermarket and the DIY store, the school and the garden and lifestyle centre, past the church and the entertainment complex and on, past the Happy Valley retirement home, past the Ultimate Rest funeral home, past the bleak uniformity of the local authority cemetery with its regimented rows of grey, concrete grave markers. He passes, also, the anonymous, grey-built, postmodernist, concrete, tree-shrouded crematorium. He passes all these before, finally, his path takes him past the notice board, setting out its many municipal bylaws, past the sad, fly-blown cafe with its old tin signs rusting in the rain.
Vertigo. I walk, rather, I process, in a faltering, blind kind of a way, in a way that is void of balance. Over the pavement, I skitter. Above the flags I float their square and oblong regularities, bird-shit patterned. Under the sad sky, past the thick, high, black, dense blackthorn hedge, so pen and inkish, so contrived, so black and so greyish, so sad in its thorny, futile complexity. I know it yearns after something lost, or something never quite possessed. I sense its failure reaches out to me. The tangled thorns are a prickly net, a fugato of veins and arteries and neurons. I sigh, but not for the hedge. I sigh for me. I sigh for my journey, so pointless also. I mourn the past and grieve for the future.
Ahead, a tree overhangs the footpath and the edge of the road. Its thin shadow catches the man's attention. It strikes him that the shadow's reoccurring presence is contradictory, ephemeral, temporary, fleeting, and in some measure, upon contradiction, is, in some manner or other, the word comes to him, unbidden, whimsical. A strange word, an unusual, unused word for him. A tree's shadow, a tree, small in size, yes, but still a tree, here, in town, standing in an airy gap between the butcher's shop and the dry cleaner's. And there, beneath its branches, in a shallow dip adjacent to the tar-besmirched and grime-coated concrete curb, lies a pool of water. As he approaches, a breeze rises and the tree's branches lazily sway, causing a handful of droplets of water to fall from its foliage. They fall, one by one, into the unexpectant water, lying there in its still, brown study. The man is paused to observe. Each wet pellet disappears into the impenetrable anonymity of the water, but causing a concentric circle to form on the surface. The man observes, each one of these expanding rings as it rapidly enlarges, spreading across the water's surface until it meets another and they merge, or are overtaken by ruffles caused by the next flurry of wind. The man watches. People brush past him, but he scarcely notices notice. He is almost, but not quite, mesmerized. Time passes. Occasional pearls of water fall randomly. He raises one hand to his lips. As he does so, he notices the little mouse-hued, mouse-shaded hairs on the back of his hand. The man becomes aware of a vast subterranean sadness. He cannot pin down its exact location. Is it inside or outside? A frown passes across his brow. He knows, instinctively, it is not of the present, for even as he is talking, thus thinking, the present has already become the past. Yet, the sadness remains, intense, but elusive.
Carbon copy. Inside this body, another. 2 million years buried in long sleep, more than a nut in its shell, or a head of corn in its husk, this hard core of me. Yes, more than stiffened slime, yet less, how can I put it? Yes, much less than an echo's echo, fading away among those sunny green hills, or within the still, dense mists that lie hushed and hushing among mountains.
Trucks roar all about him. The air is heavy with noise and fuel flames. Suddenly, the man achieves knowledge of a sort. This is all too much. He feels overcome. Looking about, he takes flight. He finds refuge on a chewing gum-defiled traffic island. From such a sanctuary, he looks to right and left. The tar-coated road divides to right and to left. It is transmogrified. A roller coaster containing within itself consumables, conveying uncountable, because innumerable portions of hamburgers, oven-ready chicken and chips, curry and rice, eggs, raw but with the potential to become boiled or fried or scrambled, cheese rolls and ham shanks, millions of cans of beans and cans of soup and many cans of custard. The line of vehicles speeds up. They are red and white corpuscles, corpusing this great archery, or so he fancies. Unaccountably, he smiles. Horns honk, engines reeve, brake lights flicker, bodies rush headlong, head between the vehicles. Strongly the sun sends down a solitary beam of light. For a moment, its brightness illuminates, freezes all action. Then it is gone, leaving the traffic lights supreme once again. The man remains there, his body vanquished into this uninhabited island set in concrete sea. His head docked, his neck awaits for a verdict it feels it already knows. A foot hangs in mid-air, hangs there, out in the grit and grime that hangs there also. In the air that stagnates, he sees, inertly above the street. The man puts a hand to his chest, then a hand to his head. Am I? The emotion, if such it is, expresses itself in the form of an unspoken question. Am I, his mind mouths, experiencing a heart attack, a brain attack, a mind attack? His mouth refuses to open. The smile's ghostly skeleton remains stretched on his lips, fossilized in his jawbone. Its coordinates seem to be etched there, yet he no longer smiles.
Is this really reality? In my head, I hear wavelets snuffling like piglets, noising about by the sand's edge. I believe I smell the smell of salt. I think I feel damp wind move against my skin. I am inside and outside my body. I am aware. I feel drawn to sea and wind and sky. I consider. I ruminate. I conjugate. I remember words, a page, a book. I will arise and go now. The soft blanket of bees sounds remembered what was once my world, now pathetic. The orchard, the path, the hives, the smells, the heat of the sun, the idleness of youth, the long and rich road stretching ahead.
Passing so many houses, or perhaps homes, he feels he is home poor and house rich, he knows not which. Tight-lipped, stern-faced, stiff-legged, eyes to the front until, at last, to a half-forgotten, well-remembered, green-wooded door in a wall of black stone he comes. He knocks on the withered panel with knuckled fist, and speaks quietly, but urgently, and waits impatiently there. The door opens, without causing sound or surprise, without squeak or groan, and the man passes through, silently, noiselessly, meekly and mildly enough, through the deep in darkness of his chest cavity, and his heart remains cold and aloof. And a small change rattles still in his pockets of the cords that ride in their measured way atop his polished brown brogues.
I am all fatigue and failure. In this battle of brain, mind, heart, soul, I am all failure, all fatigue. Breath changes, chest tightens, mind becomes body. I am all failure, all fluidity gone. I know there is nothing to be bequeathed. Brain impotent, heart beating, so what? Heart pumps, so what? No soul. What is a soul? Where is my soul? There is only a landscape of unending desolation.
A sandy beach lies before him. It is empty. It spreads out before him. It runs away, skittishly, beneath his weight, unbalancing him. Soft and runny as the sand-coloured sand that ran and ran within the egg timer he remembers playing with in the wonders of childhood's estate. He looks up. A cloth sky has been pinned unevenly, white cloud painted, high above his head. He looks out. A great watery ocean lies, spread out at his feet, at his head. The ocean lives. He can see through it. It's heaving, breathing. He can see it. It rocks, it rolls, it moves towards him, over him, and moves away from him. There, just so, it plays with him. And the stiffness in the man bends. All of the rigidity melts away. The ice that sat, tight packed on and around his heart, melts. His demeanor softens. He listens. He appears to grow. He experiences an heroic swelling. The sea murmurs to the wind, and the wind whispers to the sea. He can hear the sea. He can hear through the water. A dog barks. People's voices rise and fall. They come and go. The hurdy-gurdy man strolls past, his music coming and going. The sun heats his body. His body feels good. He swells. He puffs. This man looks, and the world is indeed without equal. Sunlight flows over turquoise and green and white water. Words flow from his heart and into his mouth and onto his tongue. Far hills are green. Light shimmers of a far tree's leaf, copper and green. The sky is blue and white. Seabirds circle, white against blue. Then he speaks, saying, "This world indeed is mellifluous. It is consonant. It is harmony and grace. It is easy and good and felicitous." The sea calls out to him, his voice honey soft, his lips pouting, its fingertips enticing. The man starts. He wonders, am I awake, or is this a dream? He hears the old familiar jingle-jangle music. He hears children's voices. There he sees 3 children. There he sees a young man and a young woman. Here he sees a lone man. Round and round the galloping horses go. Up and down go the galloping horses.
Mirrors. 1. I open my eyes and I see, standing there, midge, clear as anything, lapis lazuli cobla, and turquoise embellished, jewel bejewelled in sapphires, and I see, as it were in passing, a flash of gartered blue, and I search again, and then there she is, there she stands, 4 square, a girl, yes, a girl, today, now under the blue sky, beneath the white clouds wearing a blue, that same blue, summer dress, her hair stirring in the soft, salty sea breeze. I shut my eyes, the world gasps, drowning in champagne bubbles.
The man stretches. He raises his arms. He lifts his head. He opens his eyes wide and looks. He looks up and out and sees only the surging, ever-hungry, green waves. He sees the yellow-bearded white surf. He lifts his face higher and sees the blue sky. He looks further and is confronted by a sudden shattering of light. An anarchy of crystal shards materialize, battling for survival. Where moments before, the sun brightly breached this blue sky-blue cloth. He is in the stars, and the stars are in him.
Mirrors too. All about, people are becoming shadows, distant and unknowable. Their laughter, their voices, one with the ocean distant voice. I attempt to take you in my arms. Your body is air, your bones water, your spirit smoke. My arms pass through you, caught there between sleep and waking. I take heed. I find I am embracing you. I embrace myself.
He finds he is seated. A lone ice cream man appears. He wears white canvas shoes. His feet are without socks. The bottoms of his white trouser legs barely reach his calves. His bright white t-shirt is worn, white and newly washed and presses. As he passes, he looks a question, smiles, does not halt. Later, the man thinks, when the time is right, we shall exchange something, money, a token perhaps, for an ice cream cone. The youth strides off with great, elongated, stretching steps over the yielding, soft, dung-coloured sand. He is followed by the hurdy-gurdy man. They are both followed by a gaggle of excited children. The man discovers himself sitting in a pool of calm. Now he feels the flow of life racing through his body. He is ready now to answer an unasked question. He is ready to make an uncalled-for decision. He shakes off his footwear and abandons his black and grey socks, leaving them where they fall. He rolls up the legs of his trousers and walks on the sand, barefooted and feeling fresh and free. The wind plays in his hair, and he can see and taste on the salt on his lips. And he is alone, and light, and unattached, and delighted, and graced. So he strolls on the warm, soft sand that creeps grittily between his toes, that makes up this beach, that sits beside this blue-green sea, under these white clouds that spill across the blue sky. He is a happy man. He ventures to the sea's edge. The water is soft. He lowers his lips to the ocean water, and it is salty. It is as warm and frothy as fresh milk, newly drawn. As it were, as though through a fog he peers, he is face to face with his self.
Elsewhere, I've had to fit myself into spaces that exist between people, not only among chairs or under tables, but between people. The suits, the collars, the ties that adorn, that bind. I have had to squeeze myself into the wildernesses to seek out the vacancies that exist between people. I have had to bite my tongue. Oh yes, I learned early to button my lip, to mind my P's and Q's. I have had enough. I am not going to those quarters again. I am minded to make myself scarce. I am off into the future or into the past.
He finds he is seated. He listens to the long approach of the hurdy-gurdy music. It is still early enough in the day for ice cream, but the ice cream man is there once more, standing there, willing to hand him a cone of the white stuff, complete with chocolate stick. And the beach chair man is here to smile and put out his striped deck chair for his comfort. And so, the man-child walks up and down. He eats his ice cream and sits, now and again, as the fancy takes him, on the striped canvas that covers the chair. His eye is on the lady who has come here to play in the sea. He was here now to provide him with a widow's mite of distraction. He understands how things are, well enough. She is comely enough to please him, yet there was something of the witch, with her soft, white, graceful arms, and her about her with her jet-black witch's hair, and her silver hairband, and her black bathing suit, black to her trim waist, which waist, like her bosom, it hugs, neatly and without passion. Below, salmon flecks corrupt the material's blackness. Silver, fish-scaled one might say, is the black swimsuit, the funereal bathing costume, a one-piece garment made for the dead, he considers. His eyes travel, but lazily so. Her legs beneath the water he can see. He can observe them in their ebb and flow movement, where they descend behind, beneath the waves. And he wonders, as he eats his ice cream, are they one or two? Are they twins? Or are they human limbs at all? Are they that part of a fish that the fish swims by and steers by? Is this woman a mermaid, he wonders? In his musings and dreaming and castle building, his mind is cloud-born, and for the moment he is happy.
The Molly Maguires. The wind rises, the air hums, breezes gambol on the wires of the world's liars. They play the Molly Maguires. The sun hangs red as a bonfire. Great clouds of glory tell a story. Great mother of song, sing up for me. Dancer. Look, I am dancing, father. See, I am dancing, mother. Soul, toe dance, pirouette, and I smile. Ridiculous and lovely. My heels hit the world hard, and the world groans beneath my heels. And I smile.
He is afoot. He thinks, I am happy. The ice cream paper carefreely, gaily, guiltlessly tossed on the sand. His empty hands stuffed down the back of his black trousers. His shirt buttons undone, exposing the grey surprise to his skin to the warmth of the spring sun. His chin lifted to catch the first of the same spring sun's warmth. He is happy. He dozes on his feet. He is moved to dream. He has become content. Children's laughter swells around him. The buzz of people underlies the sound of the sea. His mind wanders. In wandering, it departs from reality, or approaches reality. He is now unsure. His mind's eye rests in darkness. Her presence fills his heart. He knows if he opens his eyes, he will see her, out there, swimming in the deep, deep sea, floating, carried on the waves, then turning, lazily, easily, freely, then striking out with long, strong strokes.
Two worlds meeting. I too have a dream. In my dream awareness and sleep. Moonlight floods the beach. I see a woman moving. Then the moon departs abruptly, sliding behind clouds. There, just there, I see her standing in the narrow beam of the pier head lamp. The armoured darkness guards her upright, slim, slender person. Look, her shadow head lies beyond the light's limits. Its thin, cold feet locked firmly to her warm feet forever.
He sits. In the distance the sea moves, relentlessly, restlessly. On the bandstand dark shapes move in a choreographed, short-stepped, foreshortened, shackled dance. Vamped, he thinks. His eyes close. Music comes and goes in time with the dark figures in his mind's eye. He dozes. Then, contentedly, he snoozes now, settled on the warm sand. Now he slides into dreams, dreaming of the white-armed woman, of her soft, white arms circumnavigating his west, of those soft, white-skinned arms holding him firmly and warmly and embracingly, enticingly so. He dreams thus, while the orange and red sun sinks, and the butter and cheese moon rises, yellow and cream and white, and the heat goes, and the tide flows, and the sea recedes, and the seagulls come and go and come with the salty tide. The sea moves, relentlessly, restlessly. He raises his nose. The air is seasoned with music. The day is melodious.
Her ashes have been scattered, cast up into the air. Here, where water and earth meet, they are gone. She is not here. And yet, and yet, and yet. 2. And yet consider all those spreading generations who stood outside the single moment of her all too short life. And consider also all these spreading generations, children and grandchildren who have halted here momentarily, silently, contemplating her life, or what they saw or knew of her life, of her brief lowering.
He awakes. He shivers. He gets up with some difficulty. He walks around and about. He walks further. He stops by a rock pool. The water's surface shivers, distorting pebbles, shaking reeds of seaweed. The pool encompasses the sky and holds in its firm grasp the odd, few passing clouds. The man bends down. He studies his face. He observes how its image is held in, no, is held on, no, is held, floating under the water's surface. He notes how his face image is superimposed on the pebbles, on a human woman's form, imprisoned there among the seaweed. But all are magically held. They coexist. They live in coexisting realms. He watches as a strays cloud image melts into, or passes through, the myriad images held in the water's liquid grip. On impulse, he looks away. Then, fast as light, he looks back. The face in the water is still there, still looking at him, jelly wobbling, rocking in the little breeze that has just come up. Was it always there, like this? Or did it look away when he looked away? Or did it stop being there when he stopped looking? He turns away, leaving his image to drown, if it will.
Shaken. Might things have been different? By that I mean, I suppose, might things have been better? Who knows? A seagull gliders overhead, light and heavy, sour and sweet, to my eyes, to my heart, to my soul, higher, a cloud, just as, bright-edged, momentary. I pay attention to its shape. I try to make it mean. I attempt to impose form, to discover or to create significance, but fail. Am I to fail always like this? I always fail. I know I fail because I am doomed to strive to succeed. Carbon copy. Inside my body another. This one 2 million years buried in its long sleep, more than a nut in its shell or a head of corn in its husk, this hard core of me. Yes, more than stiffened slime, yet less, how can I put it? Yes, much less than an echo's echo. Fading away behind those sunny green hills, or in the impenetrable mists that lie among mountains.
The ice cream man is now abed, and the man who put out the deck chairs is abed. and the woman who swam now swims no longer. She too is a bed, a warm, dry bed, or the hard, cold seabed with fishes streaming above her, going about their business above her. He knows not. It is in the past. It is the past. He dreams other women and other men. He conjures a bridal party, a bride and groom boarding a steam-driven boat, small and dark, and with a black chimney that emits grey-black smoke, sucking in the black-grey clouds and then spitting them out again. The horizon behind a fire, the sky black, the sea-water greenly green-faced and white-lipped and seashell full. The young groom holds his new wife under the protection of one encircling arm. Meanwhile, she looks out. She is waiting for the fearful, unknowable, unimaginable future to happen.
I feed on a gaseous consumption consumed at sea level. The sea pulls me. I dig my naked heels into sand. Greedily, rapaciously I gulp the ballast of air above my head. The pearly egg and sperm mix of the Milky Way. Beneath my feet, the tiny tremor of earthworms consorting discreetly. I suck air. I taste iodine and ammonia. Oxygen flows, sending red and white capsules of life through my body's arteries and veins, deep into my capillaries. I breathe deeply. I feel the salt-heavy, salt-flavoured stuff course through the channels and tubes and flues of my body. I feel its intimate marriage with my blood. I sense rain falling, falling in a dark rainforest. My eyelids remain tightly shut. I shall keep my eyes closed. Figments. Yet, on the way here, in passing, I glimpse sunlight lying on a field of young willows. Light-blanched, straw-coloured oak and ash stands guarding their marches. And then the headland, and then the sea, and the sky, and the small birds, lifting on unseen currents, and the invisible thing between us, forever and ever and ever, there between us.
As for the future, distance rubs out fault lines. He looks ahead, straight into the bottomless, sideless, roofless moment, confined with this cage, whose opaque walls are time and space, tenanted here with snakes and wolves, but with imaginings that reach far beyond such palisades. He senses it, a kind of grief. It rests like a virtual ache, heavy yet feather-like. He whispers, how strange, how something so immaterial can be so strong, so real, yet so intangible, so ungraspable, yet so present, all the same, all the time.
I feed on a gaseous composition consumed at sea level. The sea is a magnet. I dig my heels into the wet sand. Greedily, rapaciously, I gulp the ballast of air. I shut my eyes. Beneath my feet, I feel the tiny tremors of earthworms consorting discreetly. I breathe deeply. I feel the salt-heavy, salt-flavoured stuff course through the channels and tubes and flues of my body. I feel its intimate marriage with my blood. I suck air. I taste iodine and ammonia. Oxygen flows, marshalling red and white armies along my body's arteries and veins, deep into my capillaries. I sense rain falling, falling in a dark rainforest. I open my eyes. Above my head lies the pearly egg and sperm mix of the Milky Way.
He is floating upwards, upwards towards the clouds. The big blue and white balloon proceeds decorously. Someone has pulled the clouds apart, revealing blue light. He accepts this as an invitation. He grasps the cord that controls the rudder. He steers for the gap, steers towards the place where the moon and the sun are to be found, lifting up into the music of the spheres, out of the reek and the vapour, leaving the gravy-brown darkness behind. Looking back once, and then once more, he sees the beach spread out below him, its rocks and rock pools, water-filled, sand-frilled, the pools ice-capped, sunlight and moonlight cloud-dappled and doud-shadowed. Inland, little watercress woods bubble and billow. They spill up out of their cradles of shady valleys, seeking sun's heat. The undulating sea is hard feast of fishes and yearning faces, seaweed tangles of heads embossed with fishtails and silver fish eyes and dark black man and woman eyes, all staring up or down or out or in, he knows not, staring at him, longingly, beseechingly, pleadingly, voicelessly. He is his own man. He leaves the dead to the dead.
Taking a stand. I have come down to the sea today, to the meeting of two eternities. To toe that line takes no small courage. I sat on the fence. Rather, eventually, I walked westwards. I straddled the line for a bit, 1 foot wet, 1 dry. Then, without thought, I turned and came back. 2 feet wet now. However, one is becoming drier, and I did not take sides.
From the precarious sanctuary of this little basket, he views the bedrock of his world, and for a moment can comprehend everything. By resting on the effigy of his magic eyeglass, he can see the spread and the detail of that world. He can see seeds fall and grow under the shadows of passing flocks of birds. He sees trees mature and forests fall. He can see the comings and goings of the seasons. There is summer and winter, spring and autumn, each in its place. And there is the great Earth Mother, love-filled, big-bellied, hugely pregnant, gropingly, inchingly, moving with the hope and life and blind faith of motherhood. He can see how dispassionate she is, unmoved by pity, relentless in her doing and being. And then it passes, and he is left with a memory, evaporating even now, and a sense of equilibrium of spirit.
Shoreline. This shoreline is not to be crossed. Boats have no place here. Bees, no pollen, no honey. The sea cave's chambers fill and empty, fill and empty. Night and day, the caves fill and empty. I take the ocean's measure. I breathe out. I breathe in. I imagine a better place. I imagine a better time. I take the sea cave's measure. I breathe out. I breathe in. I breathe out. I breathe in. We are in accord.
He looks down, steadily. The time is coming when this earth will consume him. He knows it to be so. It will eat him. It will sustain itself off his remains. It will feed on his flesh and on his bones and on his brain. His hair and nails will be devoured. His eyes will be consumed, as will his nose and his ears and tongue. The soil and what moves in it will drink these liquids contained now, but decanted then from his body. His body the earth shall partake of, but the idea of him will disdain. He knows this to be so. The idea of him will be dismissed. It will pass away, silent and unsubstantial, as a bird's grey shadow on midnight water.
Splitting the atom. Fragmentation is not an end, but a beginning. No, rather it is the middle of the beginning and of the end. The day is reflected in glass. Lights shine off the broad face of the sea. A universe is reflected in a dewdrop.
Onwards the man travels. The warmth of the sun slides across his path between morning and night. The air is soft and warm as honey, summer's honey, soft and warm. and between night and day, the pale moon slides calmly enough across the sky, lighting his path. He knows it has always been so, and shall always be so. Onwards he travels. He travels because he can do no other, and now he is content with that, and warm enough, and well happed, and at liberty in his body, and in his heart, and in his head. A man free, as are those who travel with him. He finds himself turning away.
A working life. Here is the tide line, the place where the sea does its housekeeping. Twice daily it sweeps under the sky's watch, leaving the sand smooth, untouched. I think, then, I hope to place my mark here, a sign of my own making, if only for the duration, and even if the sand does not care one way or the other. It's merely evidence in the soft sand, an acute angle, a closing O shape. Now I find myself turning away.
He finds himself turning away. I have done my bit. I have reached a headland over it. The sky is light. Brightness beckons. I now can turn, shall turn, to resume my journey.
I have done my bit. I have reached a headland. Over it, the sky is light. Brightness beckons. I now can turn, shall turn, to resume my journey.